You're listening to a podcast of spurious morality.
Hello and welcome to a podcast of Spurious Morality. I'm Johnstone, and with me this week I have Greg.
Hello.
And I have Jimmy.
Hi.
And we are continuing and indeed concluding our discussion of season 22 of Classic Doctor Who. We talked about the first three stories previously, generally enjoyed them, I think, for the most part. I think the most challenging story of the run is yet to come. We'll dive straight in, and we are up to The Two Doctors. Now, I'm a particular fan of this one. I think last time I said that it was my favourite from the run. It's not necessarily objectively the best from the run, but it's definitely my favourite. I really like what it is The Two Doctors does, because it's very different from the other multi-Doctor Who. It's very different from the other multi-Doctor stories because it's not celebrating anything. It's not designed as a celebration. It's not designed to, it doesn't have a focus that takes away from the fact that it's just doctors meeting. It also helps that it's two doctors and not three or five. It means that everybody gets something to do. And actually the second Doctor is sidelined for a fair chunk of this story, which I think is a bit of a shame. But I do quite like sort of how it handles his sidelining even. That works quite well. I really like the opening sequence to this. We get a sort of, it's almost like a missing second Doctor and Jamie adventure. It even starts off in black and white and then turns to colour, and we get this whole quite extended section on the space station. It introduces quite a few important characters, and basically it's just a mini episode of what could be season 5, season 6 Doctor Who, and it's great. I really enjoy it.
And then Six and Perry show up.
And then Six and Perry show up, yes. Well, then the Sontarans show up, actually, and kind of ruin it. And I quite like the fact that the Sontarans remain unseen. We see the battleships. We sort of see a hand holding a gun. And then it's almost like it ends on a cliffhanger. It is just this genuinely wonderful mini second Doctor and Jamie story. It's great. I love it. Then we shift to the Sixth Doctor and Perry. The Sixth Doctor's fishing and all that sort of thing. And it takes a while. In fact, really, it's not until part 2 for the second Doctor and Jamie to be reintroduced again. Jamie kind of becomes a companion to the Sixth Doctor for the rest of the story, and the second Doctor is, for the most part, a prisoner of the villains. There are some wonderful sequences. I really, really like the whole bit about them trying to turn the second Doctor into an androgum, and he and Shockeye just go out for dinner. It's great. There's some really brilliant Robert Holmesy stuff in here. It's a proper Robert Holmes script. We've even got double acts left, right, and centre, and yeah, it's good. I also think this benefits from the extra runtime. This is a 3-parter, and with the episode length we have, it's equivalent to a 6-parter. It's kind of a nice just a nice change of pace, really, to have a story that has a little bit more time to breathe. It doesn't feel padded. You know, you think back to some Pertwee six-parters when there was a lot of padding. This doesn't do it too badly, but then again, I guess Robert Holmes has written a lot of Doctor Who by this point, and he knows how to maybe not remove the padding, but certainly hide it or at least make it entertaining. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of this one. It does have its not ideal moments, but as we've established, so does everything. I just have a lot of fun watching this. I guess my main complaint would be I'd rather there be a little bit more Second Doctor in there, but that kind of doesn't fit with what the story does, and it's nice to have a multi-Doctor story that actually puts plot before let's just enjoy the spectacle on screen and celebrate what's going on and all that kind of thing. So yeah, a big fan of this. What about you, Greg?
Oh, definitely also a big fan of it, and, I mean, right off the top, and you mentioned that there's not a lot of, padding in the story. I mean, I disagree. I think there is a pretty obvious bit of padding, but it is, Patrick Troughton and John Stratton just having a blast playing these 2 androgums going to a restaurant and eating everything in sight, and, I mean, it's just absolutely delightful, and so I don't care that you don't really need it there. It's one of the best parts of the story. Yeah, in general, like, it's like you said, it's nice to have a multi-doctor story that isn't driven by the need to have an anniversary special. It's nice to have a multi-doctor story that isn't fighting for screen time between all the different doctors, and it's nice to have a multi-doctor story that isn't really concerned with any of the mechanics. Like, we don't need scenes explaining why the doctors get together. The sixth doctor just happens to run into a second doctor adventure that he can't remember. Yeah, I think just in general, it's a very successful story. I think Robert Holmes keeps it structured very well. One of the things that really stands out about it to me is the music. I think this was Peter Howell's last story doing the score, and it's phenomenal. That, like, Sontaran military theme is one of the best the show's ever had, I think, especially the way it's used going into the pseudo cliffhanger at the end of the, mini Second Doctor episode at the beginning. Um, I do think that, it shows cracks around the edges a little bit. Like, I think Holmes struggles to keep all the characters occupied. Um, Again, that's like, sending the second doctor off, as part androgum to go eat is, like I said, it's padding, but it's also like, it doesn't really the only thing he gets to do in the story after his little mini episode is over. Um, so it's a little disappointing to spend so much of the story with Troughton just tied to a chair, but, I mean, he's such a good actor that he can pull it off anyway. I mean, the cast is great. Like I said, the music is great. The location filming in Spain looks great. It's just a very pleasant, enjoyable story, and that's not to say that the subject matter is pleasant and enjoyable, because the story still has a lot of that Eric Sayward, era darkness to it, like the completely unnecessary murders of characters, the doctor strangling Shockeye to death with cyanide, and it's a little, icky in that sense, and then at the end, like, just, arbitrarily declaring, like, "Well, we're vegetarians now," and it's like, that doesn't I don't know, like, I understand the impulse, but at the same time, I don't really think it fits with the tone of the story. I mean, I almost feel like the doctor at the end should be like, "Let's go get hamburgers," you know? I don't know. Yeah, no, but really, I mean, it's I don't think it's the best story this season. I think that one's coming up, but I love this story. It's one that I watched all the time when I was younger, and I'll still put it on every now and then when I want to feel good.
It's yeah, I agree with you that it isn't objectively the best, but it's the one I'd go to. If you said to me, pick a story from season 22 that you just want to watch for the sake of enjoying some good Doctor Who, this is the one I would go for. I'm assuming, of course, that you're picking Timelash as the best story of the season.
Well, I thought
which
that went
obviously-
without saying, but yeah.
What do you think, Jimmy?
I was a bit disappointed. I used to consider this one probably my equal favourite Sixth Doctor with Vengeance on Varos, but I hadn't re-watched it in a while, and this time around it just didn't hit for me as well as it used to. I mean, it's still good, but I thought it was one of the brilliant, better stories of this era, but it's just pretty good. I mean, it's brilliant to have the second Doctor back and Jamie, but the second Doctor does get very heavily sidelined, and I know it's 6B or not 6B or whatever, or however you want to argue about that, but it does feel a bit odd to have the second Doctor and Jamie sort of sniping at each other so much, like with the, oh, Harry-led Highlander and your diplomatic skills, and then the bit about he's got his head doing, oh, his new sleep and taking piss out of each other. It's like their dynamic is slightly off, and it's a shame because they're both playing parts as well as ever, but the script just doesn't quite get them. And like, it is disappointing when we cut to Six and Perry. That's the sad thing. Like, I mean, it's supposed to be the Sixth Doctor's era, and it's like the only thing people like about this is the second Doctor and Jamie, and so it's a bit of a shame. I mean, at least at first, Sixth Doctor and Perry getting along a bit better than usual, but by the end of the story, you've got the bit about the human brain being small but can be effective, and it's just irritating. And then you've got the tall Sontarans. Like, why couldn't you just actually keep things as they were? Why do the Sontarans have to suddenly be tall? And, you know, they're trying to cover themselves on continuity. Like, they've got the line about, oh, it's a memory drug and so on, or, oh, it's inevitable you'll run into yourself. And it feels like they're just trying to justify themselves rather than to just, you know, focus on the story. And even in the dialogue, you've got the bit about, oh, I think your Doctor's worse than mine. And it's like, you know, he's having a tough start to his era, and you've got even the characters in the story pointing out that, you know, the Sixth Doctor's a bit crap. It's, yeah, not ideal. It's, yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm sound like I'm hating it more than I do. I mean, I do like it, but it was just disappointing. And then you've got some of it being a bit dark and gratuitous, even for the Sixth Doctor series. Like Oscar's death, just sort of, you've had all this silly, ridiculously padded nonsense with two turning into an androgram and them having their dinner, and then you just get this brutal death out of nowhere, and then they're sort of not taking it seriously and having the bit about Goodnight Sweet Prince and whatever, and it's just, come off it. And then also talking of bits that are dark, you've got the execution of Shockeye. That was so over the top. Like, yeah, it's really dark and messed up, and Sixth Doctor's trying to survive and whatever, but I mean, he just absolutely brutally goes for it. And then not only do you have the pun about death, you've got two, because you get the just desserts and the mothballed, and it's like, gee, you're really pushing it pretty far here. And then the vegetarian line at the end is like, yeah, like, I think people would have got it without you hammering in that line. It just feels a bit silly. I think one of the few good things I will comment on is it's a very subtle moment, but I did like how both of the Doctors and their companions sort of match to each other in that bit where Sini captures them and, you know, hands up, and the second Doctor and Jamie both have their hands like fully extended, and the Sixth Doctor and Perry both have their hands in line with their head, and it's like, oh, the Doctors are like their companions. They've sort of got something in common. It's like a subtle, nice touch. But yeah, that's one of the few really positive things. I think it's enjoyable. It's great to have the second Doctor back, but he gets sidelined so much that it detracts from it. It's good, but it's disappointing. It could have easily been so much better.
I always forget about the bit with them raising their hands and absolutely love it. It's brilliant. There's just something so wonderfully second Doctor about him fully raising his arms in the air like that. Yeah, I like that bit. No, I do like this one. I think it's a lot of fun. And yeah, while okay, the second Doctor and Shockeye going on their little lunch dates, maybe padding. It's padding done so well you barely notice. Who cares? It's just good. And the death is a bit random and unnecessary, I suppose, but every story in this era has a random and unnecessary death. It's Sayward Who. So we're gonna step slightly sideways into a mini adventure here. It's a fix with Sontarans, which it's an awful lot of fun. It's just obviously them using what was available while they were recording this story, so Sontaran costumes, mise en gun props, and all that kind of thing. And it's just a cool little story. I guess the main headline of it is obviously Janet Fielding as Tegan with the Sixth Doctor. Brilliant. They work so well. I really, really like it. So Greg, do you want to talk to us about A Fix with Sontarans?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a little, sketch done for the benefit of a kid. It's not, amazing, brilliant drama by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a lot of fun. It's a nice way to use the Sontarans, which, ironically enough, I think the Sontarans have a better and more coherent plan here than they do in the Two Doctors. But yeah, no, it's fun, and you're right. It's interesting to see Janet Fielding, you know, just playing Tegan again, but also like to see what she's like opposite the Sixth Doctor. It works. I think Tegan's a little taken aback at just how, strident this Doctor is. Like Davison would normally roll his eyes or, just, mutter something under his breath, whereas this Doctor just gives it right back to her at the same tone of voice. Yeah, yeah, the only thing that I thought was interesting was, watching in the Blu-ray set, watching the in conversation with Nicola Bryant. The reason why it was Tegan in that story is because John Nathan Turner was mad at Nicola Bryant for not doing pantomime or something like that, and like using this to show like the leverage he had, and that's kind of weird, but it doesn't affect the story at all. It's fun to see Tegan back at least, and yeah, I mean that I don't have much more to say about it, but it's fun. I like it.
What about you, Jimmy?
Well, I mean, if the kid enjoyed himself and that's the whole point of it, then good for him. But like, it's so silly. Like, I mean, the Sontaran being called Nathan, and the Doctor having a chemical weapons button in his TARDIS. Yes, young man, push the button that will expel poisonous gas and melt them to death. That's a thing that I'd have in my TARDIS. It's just, I mean, if the kid enjoyed himself, that's great. But like, they couldn't have given him something better. And of course, with the edits that obviously had to be made for obvious reasons, it's so weird when you go from the whole story, Colin with his 80s voice, to suddenly having his Big Finish voice at the end. It just sounds so weird because, like, in Big Finish, he sounds the same age through the whole story. It's consistent. Having him suddenly age up for just one line, it sounds really weird. Like, there should have been a better way to edit it or something to do with mixing or whatever on his voice. It just, didn't work. So, yeah, it's a bit of a pity that it couldn't have been something better, but it did what it set out to do. It made the kid happy. That's the main thing.
I think there should be more Sontarans with like really boring Earth names. Like they shouldn't have to all be called like usually things beginning with S, I guess. I reckon we should just have like Group Marshal Norman or something like that pop up one day. I like
Well,
it.
Steyer is a dumb name, so I get it.
Well, yeah, exactly. Who'd choose that? That's what you need, like Space Marshal Greg. There you go.
Exactly. I am Sontaran Commander Frank.
Group
Go on then.
Marshal Bob.
That sounds like that just made me think of like Blackadder does Sontarans. I don't know.
Now that I would pay to see. That would be fantastic. Let's move on then. Let's move on to Timelash. Oh dear. So, okay. Timelash was actually, I'm fairly certain, the first Sixth Doctor story I saw in its entirety. So I started with Attack of the Cybermen, but I probably missed the first 20 minutes or so when I saw that. So I think Timelash was my first like full Sixth Doctor story, and I was very young, and at the time I enjoyed it. Returning to it after that, it's been less enjoyable. It's definitely got its flaws, lots of them, all over the place. I actually quite like what Paul Darrow does. Like, I really like the sort of the high camp of Tekka. I think it's played really, really well, and Paul Darrow is having fun, and I'm all for Paul Darrow having fun. I genuinely think he pretty much invented his own acting style, and we see it turned up to 11 here, and it's just, there's something really wonderful about it. It doesn't fit what's going on at all. Like, it's totally inappropriate for anything that's kind of going on around, but who cares? It's just, it's silly. So that's one elephant in the room that I'm kind of happy to just allow, because I do find it enjoyable to watch. It doesn't help the fact that there's a lot of other problems with this story. This is obviously one that was done on the cheap, and wow, it shows. I really get the impression that Glenn McCoy, who was a pretty much entirely inexperienced scriptwriter at this point, just did not get the support he needed. I think that's very, very evident. And obviously the script underran. So Eric Saywood wrote in some padding, and naturally that padding is right at the sort of climatic conclusion of the story, and it's 10 minutes of characters just arguing the toss in the TARDIS. We've had a lot of arguing the toss in the TARDIS, but this is definitely the worst it gets. I cannot think of any.
The whole story is a load of toss. You said it.
Oh, right. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So it does have its moments. The Borad's a fairly cool concept for a villain. I like the whole idea that this is a sequel to a story we never saw. I'm amazed Big Finish have never jumped on that, to be honest, and done the Carthel prequel. It looks really bland, but the whole idea is Carthel does look bland. It's a planet that's meant to not have any shiny surfaces because its dictator absolutely hates that sort of thing. So yeah, you can get on board with that. Yeah, there's just there's too much that doesn't work here, and I think the Twin Dilemma. I think all of the mistakes were perhaps avoidable. I think, there were problems in the writing and the direction and all that kind of thing. I think with Timelash, like, they tried and I don't know, it didn't work. There's a good script in there somewhere. It's just 3 or 4 drafts further down the line from what we got. And the direction's pretty flat, but whether there was any way of making the story look good or exciting, I'm not sure. Because the Bandrel's awful. Inside the Timelash is awful. The giant worm thing, I can't remember its name, looks awful. Yeah, I don't know. Could this have been made good? I really don't know. I don't think the Twin Dilemma could ever have been made good. I think this maybe possibly could have done if every single aspect of the production was more polished. I believe that John Nathan Turner had Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant in a convention in the States or something like that, and then immediately back to film this, so they were knackered, and they're definitely not on their A game. And it was just, I think it's just the John Nathan Turner, what were you doing kind of situation. So there we go. That's about as charitable as I can be towards Timelash. Your go, Greg.
I didn't know I was supposed to be charitable. I you
I don't go for it. Who cares? It's Timelash.
Well, I will say, first of all, this was better than the Twin Dilemma. I mean, I believe that wholeheartedly. This is not the worst Colin Baker story. It's the second worst. It's not good. There's really very little that's good about it. It feels, I don't know, it's like they were trying to put, like, all the elements of, like, a very traditional Doctor Who story together into one thing. You know, you've got the alien planet ruled by the dictator, and the doctor, brings down the society in a day, and you've got, the little time travel gimmick with the androids, and you've got a historical figure in Herbert, and I mean, all of these, these things, and oh, and you've got Perry menaced by the villain, and like it feels like the writer, Glenn McCoy, like, knew, like, okay, these are things that happen in Doctor Who stories, and then just kind of shoved them together and said, "Here," and it doesn't hang together well at all. It feels very disjointed. Um, One thing that amused me quite a bit was when I watched the behind the sofa for this one, and, like, the moment Paul Darrow comes on screen, Peter Davison just starts cackling, and he's like, "Oh, man, like, we are about to see a performance of subtlety and restraint," because he knows what's coming, and it's great. And I really have no problem with him going over the top, like, much like, Graham, Croden in The Horns of Nimon, like, you're not working with a great story here, like, just, have fun with it, try to make it entertaining where you can. What I what I really don't like about this story, more than anything, and beyond the bad set design, the weird acting choices, the lack of a plot, like, putting all of that aside, like, what I like the least about this is just how cruel it is, like, and especially as regards the Borad, like, no, I'm certainly not saying that the Borad is a character that's, worthy of our sympathy or anything like that. He is a monster, both literally and metaphorically, but, like, he's like Shara's Jack, like, he's disfigured and he's lusting after Perry, except, like, he's internalized his disfigurement, and he only wants to be with Perry if he can make her as ugly as him. Like, that's just kinda creepy and sad, like, that's not villainous, that's just ugh. And then the way the story ends with, like, the doctor just being cruel to him, I mean, essentially just, like, telling him he's ugly and he's disgusting and he's worthless, and it's like, man, that's the only time when, like, the doctor goes out of his way not just to win but to humiliate his opponent, and it feels just gratuitous and completely unlike the character that we know and love. Even the sixth doctor, as unstable as he could be on television, like, this is beyond the pale. Like, that to me is the unforgivable part of the story. Like, it makes no sense. It leaves me with a sick feeling that, like, none of the other stories in this era do. And obviously, if I'm already feeling sick to my stomach, things like the appearance of the Time Lash are not going to help. I no, I don't like it. It's bad. Don't watch it. Do something else.
Avoid at all costs. Yeah, that's fair. What about you, Jimmy? What do you think about Timelash?
Well, I'll start by quoting the story itself. Bad? No, it's disastrous. So yeah, about the one positive thing I can say is it's nice to see Perry actually get a decent costume for once in her life. That's about the one positive thing I can think of to say about the story. And other than that, it's terrible wall to wall. Like, the most horrible part almost, I mean, other than what Greg already said about at the end, that part obviously is terrible as well, but also every time the Doctor's yelling at Perry, it's not just like normal where she's just sort of looks frustrated or annoyed or whatever. She's cringing like she's scared he's going to do something every time, and it's just really dark. It's like, I don't know why she did it differently to other times, but it really hammers home how awful 6 is to her. It's just really terrible. And of course, the Bandrels look silly. That's a given. And Herbert's pretty irritating. So that's another thing. But I think the other thing that's really weird, and it ties into the next story, is when they get caught in the time tunnel, Perry starts asking the Doctor about, oh, the time tunnel like the Daleks had. And it's like, okay, when has the Doctor randomly told Perry about resurrection of the Daleks? And then, of course, you get to the next story and she sees a Dalek and doesn't recognize it. But in this story, she's shown a photo of Joe Grant and it's like, oh, yeah, that's Joe. It's like, so the Doctor has had time to get out a photo album, show Perry all his old companions, tell her about the Daleks, tell her about their time tunnels, but not actually mention what a Dalek even looks like. It's just weird. It's so weird. So, yeah, there's not really anything positive I can say other than Perry's costume. That's the one tiny good thing in an otherwise dismal, dismal story.
Yeah, it's weirdly inconsistent. I don't think Big Finish have done a Dalek story with Six and Perry before. No, they've not, have they?
No, they even in one of the I think in Eramem's first or second story, they had this bit where the Doctor mentions Cybermen and Daleks to her, but they do it while Perry's unconscious so that she can not have heard of them.
Fair enough. Good grief, the levels that they went to. Anyway, okay, so we're chalking off Timelash as a loser. It's not a story that we enjoy, and that is perfectly reasonable. Yeah, it's too flawed. I still think there is some level of redemption possible here. It's same as I did with Warriors of the Deep. I thought there was at least the opportunity for it to be done differently and better, which I still cannot see with the Twin Dilemma. So, but apart from that, what we've got and what we've always had with Timelash is a shocker. If the Twin Dilemma didn't exist, this would be probably the worst Doctor Who story, certainly of the classic era. I don't think there's any skirting around that, really. Okay, well, let's move on to something that hopefully we all think's a little bit better, and that's Revelation of the Daleks, which its big flaw, let's get this out of the way, its big flaw is the fact that the Doctor and Perry do not show up to where anything is happening until the beginning of the second episode. Nothing happens to the Sixth Doctor and Perry, and it's this sort of weird thing where Eric Saywood just doesn't seem interested in these characters at all. Like, any script editing he's done with them has resulted in overlong, boring scenes of them arguing in the TARDIS. They're not particularly proactive in Attack of the Cybermen. Like, they're certainly more than here, but they're kind of, a lot of stuff happens around them and a lot of stuff's going on without them. And it's the same here, albeit slightly more noticeable. If anything, this is a story about Davros. It's Davros's story. Davros is the main character. And it's kind of a study on how Davros basically manipulates and just pulls apart an entire society, which is exactly what happens in Genesis of the Daleks. It's his origin story. I really like the idea that he's kind of given up on his original lot of Daleks and created new ones. And obviously this becomes a much, much, much bigger thing when we get to Remembrance, the Daleks. But the sort of seeds for Remembrance being such a good story are laid here. We do have the Imperial Daleks and the Renegade Daleks. They're not named as such here, but the idea that there are two factions of Daleks sort of scrapping it out is a really good one. I love the fact that that does track with what happened in Resurrection. We are kind of following that, and it does get picked up again in Remembrance. So it's almost like a trilogy, and this is the middle part of the trilogy, and this is kind of that trilogy's Empire Strikes Back, I guess, and that works quite well. The metaphor doesn't work well because Remembrance of the Daleks is definitely not its Return of the Jedi, but um, I really like what this does with Davros. So if you take that step back and you go, this isn't really a Doctor Who story, this is a Davros story, and more importantly, it's a story that's tracking a storyline that goes back a decade and will continue forward for the rest of the 80s. I genuinely cannot believe Big Finish have not picked up on this two factions of Dalek Civil War thing that spread through 80s Dalek stories. Like, they, as far as I'm aware, they have never, ever, ever done an Imperial Daleks versus Renegade Daleks story, and I cannot
I
fathom
think there was
why.
a hint of it at the edge of the Juggernauts. I think it was almost entirely one faction, but there was mentions of the other or some brief scene
Yeah,
with the other. I
yes, there
don't
was a
remember. It's been
reference
too
to it
long since
going
I've
on.
listened to that story because I loved that story, but it's ages since I heard it.
I think there is a reference to it going on, but again, Davros is doing basically the same thing, but with mechanoids in that story. So it's fascinating how that's not being picked up on when it actually came out of two fantastic stories, Revelation and Remembrance. Um, there's a lot of other stuff going on. There's some very sort of grotesque characters. We have a comedy double act. I've often said that with this story, Eric Saywood is kind of doing a very, very, very good job of trying to be Robert Holmes. It's a very, very Robert Holmes story, this. I could believe it's a Robert Holmes story if you were to tell me it was. And I think that's perhaps something Eric Saywood always wanted to do. I think Eric Saywood actually wanted to be more like Robert Holmes. He obviously looked up to and respected the man, and quite rightly too. And I think that it's really noticeable here. This could be a Robert Holmes script. I think the dialogue would be a little bit more polished. I think the Doctor and Perry would be slightly more involved with the story and blah blah blah. But ultimately, um, there's a lot of stuff in this, a lot of good stuff in this that would be in a Robert Holmes script. Like I say, the double acts and the grotesque characters, and there's a few gothicy bits as well. People being turned into Daleks and that kind of thing. I can see that sort of transformation type, body horror type stuff popping up in something that Robert Holmes was involved with. There's something a bit Seeds of Doom about it. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this one. I think it's arguably Saywood's best. I think Saywood's best is probably actually Earthshock, but not for the reasons that this is so good. They're quite different stories, very different stories. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of this one. I think and I'm assuming that sort of Greg agrees with me here. This is probably the best story of the season, even though it's not my favourite. I'd say it was the best, and a really strong one to end a very mixed season on. I honestly don't know how over 3 stories you can go from the Two Doctors to Timelash to this. It's yo-yoing in quality all over the place, but we had the same problem with season 21 with going from Androzani to Twin Dilemma. Consistency was not a strength of this era. So Greg, talk to us about Revelation of the Daleks.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's the best story of the season, and I agree too that it's Eric Sayward trying to do like a Robert Holmes story. It's not just it's Eric Sayward trying to do the Caves of Androzani specifically. And it's obviously the plot is different, but you've got, this essentially this kind of corporate espionage plot running through it. But more importantly, you've just got a bunch of characters who are all awful in various ways. And that is really the thing that he's borrowing the most from that story. Um like no one here, like you don't want to be on anyone's side here. Like the only really good character, like, decent human being among them is the DJ, and he's an extraneous character that really doesn't have much bearing on the story. Um yeah, and it's another one of these stories where, everyone significant ends up dead. It's very just grim and downbeat. And but where I think the primary difference between the scripting of this and Caves is that while in Androzani you had the Doctor not really being a major player in the story that was going on, like, it probably would have ended up much the same had the Doctor never been there. The story is very much about the Doctor and Perry, like, dealing with, that kind of environment. The story is in part about, like, what is the 5th Doctor like in this universe? We spend a lot of time with him, and yeah, and we see that, whereas this story, like, similarly, the Doctor and Perry have very little to do with the outcome. Probably would have worked out about the same if they hadn't been there. And here they're just kind of written out. Like, they spend the entire first half of the story wandering around bickering with each other, and then they spend the second part just kind of wandering around again. Like, the story isn't really concerned with them. They're not the main characters at all. And it's just, it feels like Eric Sayward wanted to make like a science fiction show, and he didn't really want to make Doctor Who. And yet, like, when he left Doctor Who, he basically didn't work in writing again. I don't understand really what the impetus behind this was. All that being said, though, this is like a very atmospheric story. It's a very effective story in those terms. Some of the set design is great. The location filming is effective. Um, this is Terry Malloy's best performance as Davros on TV. I mean, obviously in the audios, he's at even another level, but it's, I love the fake out with Davros's head in the swivelly thing, and then he comes out and he's much more like his usual self. I love the little double act that Sayward does between Orsini and Bostock, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about this. It's got a lot of really cool set pieces. It's got a lot of fun characters that are all put together. It's good. It's enjoyable. It just ultimately it doesn't the reason why, like, The Two Doctors is my favorite story, even though I think this one is the best of the season, is because ultimately I just feel like The Two Doctors feels a lot more like Doctor Who. This feels more like an episode of some other series guest starring Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant. That's I think the biggest drawback to it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like production design, the music, the direction, especially, I didn't even mention that from Graham Harper is first rate. Like, it's an incredibly well made story. It looks great for Doctor Who. So yeah, pluses and minuses, but it's a achievement of TV production. It's not my favorite story. And this the last thought, wouldn't it have been weird if this was the last episode of Doctor Who, like, ever?
Absolutely, yeah. Um, and it could have been. It very nearly was, I suppose. And it basically ends on a not quite a cliffhanger, but it ends on setting up for another adventure, um, which eventually became Remembrance a couple of years later after a lot more upheaval. But yeah, thank God it didn't end here. Okay, Jimmy, talk to us about Revelation.
I definitely didn't like it as much as you guys. It's not terrible. It's not like Timelash or anything, but it's just I don't particularly like it. Doctor and Perry don't get much to do. They're sidelined for 95% of the story. They're off as well in various places. Like that bit at the start where Perry's playing around and looking at the plant and getting it close to her. Like ages after that, she's asking something about, is it safe to touch? And the doctor's like, usually. Like, it's meant to be a joke, but it's like the doctor doesn't care enough to warn her that it's dangerous or something. It's just, yeah. I think one good thing though about Perry is that scene where she's absolutely traumatized having to kill the mutant guy and that he forgave her. That's some brilliant acting from Nicola Bryant. That's probably the best work she had on TV Doctor Who, I would say. It was a really powerful, really good scene. So definitely like that. The other things that were annoying is the DJ, of course, it's better when he drops the act and he's saying stuff about like, they already found a cure for that, and when he's talking as himself to Perry, he's better. But the whole time the DJ is the DJ, he's just terrible. And then there's all the weird stuff like the bit where they're joking about breaking the doctor's clock. I mean, that she steps on something as she's going over the thing, and the doctor's like, it's broken, it's such a pity. I suppose I didn't use it much anyway. And they're sort of, they're blatantly making jokes about, she stepped on his dick. So what was the point of that? It was like, it wasn't funny, it was just weird, and it really just, did not work. And to me, I think people do generally like Orsini and Bostock, I think, but I don't. I just found them like very bland characters, no real personality. They're just the mercenaries who are there. It's so weird. And the glass Dalek is a brilliant thing. I did like that, and with him having to, tell his own daughter to kill him, very dark, very powerful, good stuff there. But it goes back to a problem with the story, with the whole it's a funeral home, they're all dead. No wait, they're all being frozen to await cures. Wait, but they're actually not, they've been eaten. But some are actually dead. But these ones were actually it's like, make up your mind. What's going on there? And the weird cliffhanger with the statue of the Doctor, and it's like, he's absolutely been crushed, he's dead, it couldn't have possibly survived. There he is. Like, they solve it in like 2 seconds, and it's just pointless. And it's like, it was meant to lure the Doctor, and it's like, but we already messaged him about his friend dying. And it's just, I don't know, like, there's no real consistency. They're not really handling anything well. And also, plot logic wise, the bit where the DJ is killing Daleks, and it's like, he's killed the first Dalek, he's killed the second Dalek. I'm going to stand up and walk in front of my own weapon now, and there's a third Dalek. Like, what the hell are you standing up and walking away for? Did you think there were only 2 Daleks in the entire base? Like, it's so stupid. Like, they needed to write an explanation or something, but the way they had it, it's just mind-bogglingly stupid of him. So, I mean, like, the story is probably technically better than some of the other stuff in this era, but, like, for me, it's just the Doctor and Perry are sidelined the whole time. The replacements, Orsini and Bostock, aren't that likable. And, it just doesn't work for me. I don't think it's completely terrible, but it's not one I would choose to watch in and of itself, except in a marathon. Like, it just doesn't appeal to me.
I want to interject just briefly about the dick joke. It was when I saw this story, like not until I got into like online fandom and someone explained that did I even like notice that gag was there. And I think honestly the biggest problem with it is that that Perry steps on and breaks a mysterious thing that the Doctor has while she's climbing up the wall. Now, I admit I don't know what Time Lord anatomy is like down there, but speaking as a human male, if someone had stepped on that area and broken something, my reaction would not be to exhale and look vaguely annoyed like the Doctor does. It would be more like lying on the ground screaming for death. So anyway, that's my thought on that.
I'm amazed that we've not gone down the route of like well, the real dick joke was Timelash or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, Revelation. It's an interesting one because it's, as Greg rightly said, it's a very un-Doctor Who-y Doctor Who, and I can see why that would sort of split opinion on it. Like, I can understand why somebody wouldn't like this one. I think it's excellent, and it's got so much going for it. Graham Harper single-handedly, makes Doctor Who better when he's involved with it. It's just seemingly by being present on set. Yeah, it's not as solid as Androzani, this, but it's having a good go at it, and it's still, I think, standout. I do think it's sort of very, very, very good Doctor Who, but it's just quite un-Doctor Who-like, and I think that's something that may put people off. The good news is the next time we see the Daleks, it's a very Doctor Who-y Doctor Who story, and excellent, but I'm getting a couple of seasons ahead. So, obviously, next up, we have got The Trial of a Time Lord. That will be our next season by season. It's going to be a bit strange covering a whole season in a single episode of Spodcast. We're so used to splitting them in half now. But I'm looking forward to getting to Trial because it's certainly better than what could have been. And I still think chopping the line and having the freeze frame ending at the end of Revelation's a strange decision, even if the new Nightmare Fair wasn't happening. Like, it wouldn't have hurt to just leave the line in, all right, I'll take you to Blackpool, and not go to Blackpool by the time we get to the next series. It just...
It's kind of a weird and mundane
It
way
is,
to
isn't
end
it?
a story, though, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it's like Doctor Who was genuinely at risk of being cancelled here. Why not just leave in the line about continuing adventures? Would that maybe not sort of help the case? But that freeze frame ending genuinely makes it feel like there may not be any more. And I think taking a more optimistic, we're going to carry on adventuring even if it's to Blackpool, would have been, I don't know, it's weird. But anyway, yes, we're not going to be talking about the Nightmare Fair because they never made it. Instead, we will be talking about Trial of a Time Lord. We'll obviously break it down into its 4 corresponding segments. So I'm very much looking forward to doing that. But for now, that's all we've got time for. So I will say a thank you and a goodbye to Greg.
and we will see you in 18 months.
And a thank you and goodbye to Jimmy.
Well, I'm going to leave and go to...
I was going to do exactly that joke. Never mind. But yes, we'll hopefully not have a hiatus, and hopefully we'll be back for more spodcasting very soon.